We're here today with another live for you guys. We're covering the topic of hypergamy. We actually made a video about this earlier this week that we posted, and we got a lot of feedback on that. So we figured that could be the topic for the live today. So if you guys have any questions or you guys want anything specifically answered, just let us know. We're happy to answer it for you. I'm Chase, obviously. I've been in marketing for the last 10 years, and obviously hypergamy kind of plays into that, being human nature, because that's what marketing's all about, right? This is my partner, Jared, here. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Jared Schoonmaker. Been self-employed for years now. Made the transition probably right during COVID. Got into more of performance/life coaching, where I specifically try to focus on men leveling themselves up, kind of helping men going through a breakup, maybe a bad divorce, maybe never really had the opportunity to find somebody or date somebody who in a real relationship. So I appreciate us getting on these things every Wednesday and talking about these topics, because they are important, and they're just topics a lot of people don't really understand. Maybe you've never heard of hypergamy, maybe you've heard of it, but they've actually think of it as this bad thing, and it's really not. Right. I appreciate the opportunity to talk more about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that a lot of these constructs and stuff, a lot of the topics that we're covering lately, a lot of them just really aren't talked about in the mainstream. And a lot of them, a lot of people feel like they can't maybe talk about these things. But really, like I said, it all comes down to human nature. It's all part of relationship dynamics. And that's really what it's all about. And so I just kind of want to get into that a little bit at the start here. So can you kind of define what it means, like what hypergamy means, and like maybe its role in relationships?
Yeah. I mean, basically, as per the last video I did, all hypergamy means, if you just break it down to like kindergarten level, is women having the opportunity are always going to look for the bigger, better deal. They are going to date across or up their socioeconomic ladder, if you want to call it that. They're just looking for their best option. That's all it means.
Absolutely. That completely makes sense too. Like I said, it's all human nature. And when it's nature in general, it's just kind of how we're wired as humans. I think women are wired a certain way, men are wired a certain way. And that's kind of how these dynamics play into our relationships, like whether it's, relationships between men and women, relationships with people at work, relationships with our family, and that kind of stuff too. We're all wired a certain way. That's why marketing works, right? So the brain just works in a certain way, the way that we kind of have our tics and things like that. It all just kind of makes sense. And so to kind of go against nature you're not going to have a good time. You can't go against nature. Nature is nature.
Yeah. So it's definitely part of a woman's biology. This isn't a new concept. This isn't something somebody just threw out there and said, oh, the reason why, I can't get a girlfriend is hypergamy. No, there's nothing to do with that. It's just simple fact. And think about it. If you're a woman and you carry the burden of getting pregnant, carrying that child for 9 months, and really obviously being its mother for 18 years plus, wouldn't you want to find the best option you can for that child to be a good father? Genes definitely play a good role into it. You're going to want to find the best deal that you can. And there was actually interesting study done by, I believe I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Roy Bamister. I can type it in later, but he's an American psychologist, and he came up with this study. This is probably done, 20 years ago. And he looked at the population as a whole from the very beginning of when it was recorded. And he said, we, as of today, are the descendants of twice as many women, about 80% of the DNA carried is through women, and about 40% are men. So that just proves right there, in one sense, hypergamy is real. Only 40% of the men's DNA, the population, have carried through to today. So 60% of the men, their DNA has fallen away. They don't even exist anymore of that type of men. So only 40% have actually made it to today.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so think about it. So if 80% of the women and there's only 40% of the men, well, was there some cheating going on? Was there what was going on? That women were carrying DNA twice as much than the men. So that kind of proves right there that in one sense hypergamy is a real thing. Only 40% of all men at that time are living today through DNA or through
Right.
the DNA. So
I mean, honestly, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because I mean, if you think about back to like the Stone Age or whenever, like when humans were just starting out, we lived in tribes, and the thing is too is like there weren't really civilizations or anything around at that time. It was like a hunter-gatherer society. Women had their role, men had their role, and any man who wasn't willing to step up and go out into that forest and get food, he starved. His family starved. That's just that's just reality. And so realistically, that's where those roles kind of come in. That's how our brains developed, and that's how we developed as humans. That's how we evolved. And so ultimately, anybody who couldn't step up, they didn't live. They didn't carry their genes on. And so it makes perfect sense when you really think about it. Because that's the thing too, is when you have a tribe out there and another tribe comes in and takes over and kills all the men, the women now have to go find another man. They got to find another best option. And it's just human nature. If you look at animals kind of behave the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit it right on the head. I mean, if you have warring tribes and some dude's the cook, and you got these badass fighters, the women are going to want the fighters. The women are going to be like, oh my God, this guy, he's strong, he's masculine, he can kick some ass. Like, it's just genetics. She wants the best genes for her kid. You merge them together, you get the kid. That's what they want. So hypergamy is just that in a nutshell.
There are a lot of this guy's going to get my kids fed. This guy's going to put food on the table. It's just what it is. Like I said, it's just nature.
That's all it is. So, it's definitely interesting when you hear this, and women, that I brought this up, they kind of get a little bit of offended, but when you actually just break it down and make sense for them, like, do you want, your normal guy, or do you want the badass? And, that's one of the problems that are having right now in society with hypergamy. And we can get into that a little bit later, but it is creating a problem for women, not specifically. It is creating for most men, but women are kind of starting to feel the effects of this hypergamy now.
Just like you mentioned when we first got on here, like basically, they've got the burden of carrying children to term. They've got the burden of actually raising those children and stuff too. So, obviously men have their roles in that relationship too. And it's up to us as men to step into those roles and step up in those roles.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, why do you believe women are naturally inclined to engage in hypergamy? Like, just coming back to that nature of it all, what are your beliefs around why they have to play into that, why men have to step up, and where those roles kind of rest?
Well, like I said, it's wired into her. It's wired into finding her best option. And one of the markers or one of the ways to kind of, if I can elaborate on it, is just think about women today, your modern woman. A lot of them make just as much money, if not more, than men. Most women, your modern women, are more educated than ever before, more educated than men. There's more women graduating college than men right now. They're more independent than they ever were before. The notion of, if something happens to them, they're going to call, the police. So that fear of a warring tribe coming into their house, it's really not likely to happen. So by and large, they can be on their own. However, what does all of that do? They're making more money. They're more educated. They're fairly independent. Because we know they want to date at least at their level, but usually higher. Right. What happens to their pool now? If a woman's making $120,000 a year right now, okay, she needs to at least find a guy who's making at least $120,000 or more.
Right.
In order for her, it's kind of like, okay, to feel like he's a better deal, he's a better catch, he's a better option. Okay. She's typically not going to date the barista at Starbucks if she's making that kind of money, who's not educated. He's just spinning glasses. You know, she might have fun with him, date him a little bit, but she's not going to take him seriously. So what happens now is you have more and more women ticking all these boxes. They're making more money. They're more educated. They're more independent. And yet their pool gets smaller. Only
Right.
only 24% of the population makes $100,000 or more a year. Half of them are women. So that's only 12.5% of the population of men make 100,000 or more a year. Everyone thinks everyone makes all this money. It's not true. And then you got to take those men in that pool. Some of them are married. Some of them are gay. Some of them obviously are black or Indian or whatever. So then it goes into, well, what's your preference in race? So then that pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller, where you're down to roughly 80% of all women are pining for about 5% of all the men out there that are available.
Right.
This is how hypergamy can work in your nature. If you're a man who's in that top 10%, well, then you have your choice with the women. So that's kind of how you beat hypergamy, is become the man that most women want.
Right. Let's get into that a little bit, actually. Yeah, absolutely. That completely makes sense, actually. That's why this program even exists. Like, we're here to try and help men level themselves up and become that best option. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think men can use hypergamy to their advantage in their relationships?
Well, number one is, get your money right. If you're already in a relationship. Now, I'm going to preface this too, because I'm not saying all women. I'm not going to paint a huge brush to say all women actually, that they all have hypergamy in them. They all have hypergamous natures, but some women prefer, maybe a guy's just working 9 to 5. He's a good man, good provider, good husband, and they're set with that. And even if another man who has higher status coming in, she might think about it, but she still knows this is my best option. He's a good man. So I'm not going to paint it all women do this, and given the chance, they're going to monkey branch to this other guy. However, I like to have that competitiveness. So I would want to be, if I was a man, which I am, but I'm out there dating, I'd want to be most women's best option. So I'd want to have my money right. I'd want to make as much as I can, as much as my ability can, whatever it is that I did. I'd want to have my physical health right. I don't want to be like 73% of the population is overweight. So think about that. So if I'm making really good money, but I'm overweight, are you going to be her best option? No, let's get you in that maybe top 20% of men or 10% of men who actually look good naked. I mean, why is that such a bad thing?
Right.
I want to get my money right. I want to get my health right. I want to get my relationships around, my family and stuff right. I don't want to have a lot of drama in my life. And I want to get my emotional health as best as possible. I don't want to be wildly emotional. I don't want to be, one of these beta cucks out there. So I would want to be what's called, Casey Zander kind of says full stack. You want to have all your ducks in a row. So when a woman does enter your frame, you're not entering hers. When she enters your world, she knows, okay, this guy's ticking all the boxes. He's, I don't know if I can do much better. And if you are that type of guy, you're going to have that type of attitude. It's like, go ahead, go try to find somebody better. I don't care. There's more of you looking for me now than me looking for you. That's the position as a man you want to be in. You want to have these higher quality women who are making good money, who are doing that. They want to be coming after you. And that's what we help men understand, is just flip the script. Become her best option. And then you don't have to worry about hypergamy as much.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense too. That's the thing too. It's like there's a lot of traits I think we need to embody as men. Like obviously we need to take ownership of our lives. We need to step into our own. We need to have, control over our lives to a certain extent too. I think that's kind of where, building skills up and having a good job. That's not to say you need to be an entrepreneur, but obviously entrepreneur is a good option for you. Sure. But at the end of the day, like, you really need to level yourself up. Like, you need to work into making yourself more valuable as far as skills, which, in turn will increase your income, will increase other things in life. And if you have more income, you have more fuel, there's no reason not to go to the gym. There's no reason not to buy a nice car. There's no reason not to get all those things, right? And so ultimately, I think that those are a lot of the traits that we need to embody. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, what other behaviors do you think we can embody as men to try and step into that?
A lot of women are looking for that traditional guy who, in society, we have this wishy-washy thing about men and masculine, and we talked about it before.
Right.
But most of the time, what a woman's looking for is those attributes we talk about, having your money right, having all that stuff. But at the end of the day, also being a kind man, a kind, good man to her. Maybe not kind to everyone else, but kind to her. Look, there's always going to be guys better looking than you. There's always going to be guys that make more money than you, who have higher social status than you. There's always going to be that. So at the bottom line, Rich Cooper coined this, I think: chase excellence, not women. So if you're constantly on the lookout, I got to do all of these things for women, you're missing the point. You want to be able to do all of these things. You want to level yourself up to be the best version of yourself for you first. And once you actually do that and you become attractive to yourself, other women are going to find you attractive. Right. That's the key, is you want to love yourself so much that you're your best option. Shit, I would date me. I would marry me. You want to be your best option. Another woman will fall into your frame. So it's just about doing the things that you want to do to level yourself up. Man, the women will come. You don't even have to worry about that. Women aren't dumb. They're going to see this guy is, man, he's got his health right. His body looks great. He's making good money. He's kind. He's caring. They're going to start like, wow, I better grab onto this one. I better grab onto this one. So,
I think embodying that, like trying to embody that role and trying to like make sure that you are that person, that you are the best option for yourself. Like you said, like, that makes perfect sense, because like, even if you're single, even if you're alone, like, you're still going to be happy doing what you're doing. And like, that's a good thing. Even if you have a family and stuff too, like, your kids are going to watch you, your kids are going to want to embody that and stuff too. And so that's the thing, is like, it really creates security and foundation for everybody around you.
Yeah, it does. It does. And, like I said, hypergamy is out there. It's going to happen. Even a girl who will never leave you, who will never stray, she still has that nature. So she's still going to look at that guy who's better looking. They're going to lie about this, of course, but they're still going to look at that guy who's, rolled up in that Lambo, who's 6'4", jacked, and they're going to have a thought like, wow. But does she actually have a chance with him? Probably not. And so they're realistic in that sense. So you just got to be her best option, but you really first have to be your best option. Right. At the end of the day, a man should ask himself, would I date me? Would I marry me? And if the question is, no, I wouldn't date me, well, then there's some problems going on that you need to level yourself up for. Because if you wouldn't take yourself seriously, how can a woman?
Doing that introspection, I think, is important too. Like, sit down and write it down. Like, write down exactly what you think you need to change. Like, do I need to go to the gym more? Do I need to try and improve my income? Are there other high-level skills that I could be learning to try and improve myself? What are the other things that I want to see in my life? What kind of hobbies do I want to embody? Because that's stuff that even when you get into a relationship, like, you don't want to lose those hobbies. You don't want to lose going to the gym. You want to make sure you keep doing that stuff regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Right. Yeah. You never want to lose who you are. And then sometimes, guys, that kind of where hypergamy might find its way in. Women want to pick a winner.
Right.
So if you're a young guy looking at this, and let's just say you're in college right now, and your girlfriend or a girl's in college, it's a little bit different than if you're a little bit, older and you're kind of out there. But if you're in college and let's say your goal, your plan is to be a lawyer or a doctor, and you're really smart, you're doing really good in your classes and stuff like that, and she's along for that ride, meaning, listen, this guy's going places. This guy, can really have a shot at being a surgeon or whatever he wants to be. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
They will pick the winner based on the possibility, not what's happening right now.
And that's the
Problem
biggest thing
is,
too. Like when it comes down to that too, like they'll do anything for you. Like they'll actually take care of anything for you. Like that's in women's nature to be nurturing. And so the
right.
thing is like they like to take care of things. And so they want to make sure that they have that security and that foundation and that structure that you can provide to them in order for them to flourish in their own too. And they'll take care of everything for you. Like you'll never like when you have that symbiosis and when you have that relationship working together, like everything just works for everybody involved.
Yeah. So that's another way where hypergamy kind of kicks in, where he's not there yet, but he's on his way.
Right.
And it's the same thing. You're chasing excellence, not so much women. You're on your path to being that doctor, let's say, or that. Now, if you're older and maybe you have missed some opportunities in your life, and let's say your relationship is stagnant. We'll even say you might be in a marriage right now that's just like, it's there. It might even be rocky. It might even be that. If you're not leveling up as a man, bet your ass if somebody else comes along who's a better option, she's going to think about it a lot more. She might not do anything about it, but she's going to think about it a lot more because of what she perceived you were going to bring to the table versus what you're actually bringing to the table.
Right. I
So
think it's just human nature too to compare those things too. Like we're always comparing ourselves to other people. We're always comparing the other people in our life to other things too. And it's just, you can't really stop that from happening. It's just something that just kind of happens. It just like, it's really, like I said, just human nature.
Right. But a lot of the times the guys will stop their act on purpose to just have family and do this. And then they kind of settle in their ways. They get fat. They get lazy. They start getting depressed. Well, you're the leader of the house. If you're doing all of these things, what's going to happen around you? She's probably going to get depressed.
Yep.
She's probably going to get anxious. She's probably going to be nervous.
Right.
She might even gain some weight. But at the end of the day, if you're constantly moving forward and chasing excellence, chasing the best version of yourself, then you don't really have to worry about hypergamy. And even if you did, let's just say you're your best version and she went off and cheated with you from some corporate guy, gives a shit. At the end of the day, bye. She actually did you a favor.
Right.
She just wasn't the girl, she was just, monkey
that's
brain.
too. When you're chasing excellence, like you got to command loyalty. And that's the thing is like everybody around you needs to be loyal to that. And as long as you're loyal to yourself, everyone else is going to be loyal to you too. And so that's really all that matters. Don't try to change yourself for somebody else. Right. Be loyal to yourself and be loyal to what you want. And everybody else who enters your life will be too.
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly the way to look at it. And that's what we teach. Some of the clients we had is going through that is just leveling up, being the best version of yourself. And everybody says that. I know it's kind of a phrase everybody says, and it's kind of getting overplayed, but what other version do you want? What other version do you want? Do you want an okay version of yourself? Do you want an version of yourself? Do you want a subpar version? I mean, all of those, when typically clients come to me, they're in a stuck version of themselves because they have these old thoughts, and old thoughts cannot produce new ideas. So our job is to create or maybe dispel these old thoughts first so that then they're in a space to create new ideas, to come up with their own best options and then execute them.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've noticed too with a lot of the men in our community too, is that a lot of them have been living a certain way for a long time. A lot of them really come into this like pre-programmed. per se, right? To believe a certain thing, to compare themselves in certain ways. And they're thinking that, oh, I got to change myself and I got to do this in order to be loved. I've got to be this way. We talked about it last week, actually, when we were talking about nice guys. And that's really what it is. They're kind of pre-programmed to think that, hey, if I do this, then I'll get this. And if I just change myself and be this person that everyone else expects me to be, then I'll get what I want. And really, that's the wrong way to look at it. You've really just got to sit down and strip all that away and say, okay, well, who do I really want to be? What do I really want to be doing? And at the end of the day, just live true to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's get into a little bit of like how hypergamy has evolved over time too. Like obviously, you had the 50s male and they embodied a certain way, like traditional values and that kind of stuff. And then obviously we have modern men. We have all through time. I think this has changed a little bit all through time, especially from the 50s until now. So what do you think about hypergamy and how it's evolved into the new age?
I don't think it's really... I don't really think it's evolved as much as people think. The circumstances of have, again, back in the cave day, you want this big, strong guy who's able to go kill and bring home the food and protect. So that guy would be the best option to carry on your genes. And then as you get more and more into the more civilized world, what we have today, women still want, or they still pine typically for the top 20% of men, really the top 10% of men. And if you kind of look around it, what does that typical guy look like? It is your more of what we call that alpha type guy. He makes great money. He's very confident in what, in his abilities, what he does. They're all looking for this ideal type of guy. And sadly, a lot of them have this thought, I guess I'll say it to keep it PG, or this idea that they all deserve this type of guy, and nobody deserves anything. You don't deserve anything. You want to be your best option. So what typically happens is, and again, not all women, I want to preface that because we're going to get haters and like, oh, I don't do this, I don't do that. Well, then you're on that scale, you're someplace else. But by and large, if you can still just understand that they want the best deal. Yes, they want a guy who makes more, at least what they want, if not more. Okay. It's a lie that if they say, oh, well, the guy I'm with is, making 60 grand, I'm making 200 grand. I'm willing to bet on few outliers it would work, but as a whole, if you're just dating, it probably won't work long term because he's going to be jealous. You have that dynamic you got to look at too, because most men do not want to compete with women at that level.
Right.
We don't want to come home and end up competing with our wives. We're out there competing all day long. Absolutely. So even if he's competing, he's being the best at that 60 grand a year, and that's his maxed out. Well, then he's pretty alpha in that sense. That's his max. Like that's what he does. Right. I mean, whatever his job is, maybe he's a teacher. I don't know. But if you can still just understand the fact that women will take across and up and typically never down, then, and you are a man and you can understand this, well, you have lanes. Okay. You're not going to go want to rap on Facebook or Instagram or on whatever these stupid dating apps to a female surgeon. I don't care how good looking you are. She's going to be like, what? It just wouldn't work. Not saying she won't find you attractive. It just wouldn't work.
Right.
So there's lanes that men have to stay in. And honestly, there's lanes women have to stay in. And that's one of the problems women have. They think they can go into all these different lanes and get and deserve this high value man when, maybe they're divorced with a bunch of kids. It's lowering your value. They don't understand that because they all kind of just think because I'm this, I deserve that. But everybody has lanes. And as we get older, our lanes tend to change. But what's nice is what men are, as men get older, we tend to have more options because it takes us longer to do the work. it takes us longer to become men. We have to suffer. We have to fail. We have to go through X amount of heartaches and breakups and all of this stuff in order to learn.
Right.
As we get older, we do have more options typically than women do, given the same age. Our dating options change. Here's the other thing about hypergamy for men. Think about it this way, and a lot of people don't. Let's take that same surgeon, but now he's a doctor, and he sees this pretty little 24-year-old barista at Starbucks. He can date her. There's no social stigma attached to it. And guess what happened? Her hypergamy kicked in. She found a better deal. Yes, he's older, but the hypergamy still worked. Okay? So you just want to be the best version of yourself. You want to chase excellence in everything that you do, and the women will just follow. You don't want to be out there doing these things just to get a girl, because once you get the girl, you're going to fall back into not working out. You're going to fall back into just okay.
Right.
Because your goal was to get the girl, not to do all of these things. Your goal needs to be doing all of these things first for you. Yeah. She's just icing on the cake.
Well, I think you've got to stay driven to it too. Like, you've got to stay driven and true to yourself. That's why that's so important, because I mean, yeah, once you get the girl, once you get the lifestyle, like, everybody has goals all the time. You need to continue to set goals. You need to keep those goals in mind. You need to keep working towards that and keep developing yourself and keep becoming the best version of yourself. And so that's the thing too, is like, where we talk about, like, pigeonholing. Obviously it's not a topic that we can pigeonhole, but at the end of the day, like, obviously there's exceptions to the rule. There's always going to be exceptions to every single rule, but by and large and as a whole, that's just what we're dealing with here. It's just human nature. And so at the end of the day, like I said, you really just got to try and become the best version of yourself, whatever version that is. That doesn't mean you have to be better than every other person. It just means that whatever that means to you, like, when people get into our program, and we actually have men come in here, we can't tell them what excellence is. Like, they have their own definition of what excellence is. It's really just up to us to help them identify what their version of excellence is, and then help them create a plan and map out goals to be able to achieve that for themselves as quickly as possible. Right. And so ultimately, and then just like Jared said, you don't have to become that person in order for her to see that in you. Like, if she sees that you're on the path and she sees that you're working towards it, she sees that you're developing and becoming a better version of yourself, she's not going anywhere. She's going to say, okay, I want to see where this goes. This guy looks like he's actually on his way.
Yeah, she picked the right horse, or she feels that this is the right horse to run this race together and go. So, hypergamy is definitely something every man's going to have to deal with. And on that spectrum of women that have it bad, meaning they just monkey branch, you're going to have women who just will monkey branch just because it's perceived this other guy's the better deal. Well, she did you a favor. At the end of the day, as long as you're doing all the things you can to be the best person for you, she did you a favor. She took her own trash out. Somebody else will come along and realize this girl was stupid. You went out, you dumped him for that guy. Yeah, he has more money, but he's mean to you. So that's the other part that, it's a perception first. But just because you're higher value, or it's perceived that this is a better deal, he might be narcissistic, he might be abusive, he may have other women. So this is something that it's very real. And oftentimes when women do monkey branch, they realize very quickly they made a mistake. And so that's one of the perils of falling into that paradigm of hypergamy.
Well, and I think too, like, even when women do identify that maybe they have a better option out there, it's like, women, not all of them are shallow. I mean, some of them are shallow, some men are shallow too. At the end of the day, though, like, I mean, I don't think that's really what we're talking about here. What we're really talking about is the fact that, like, women want to feel secure in a relationship, and women want men that step up. Like, it's just really masculine and femininity in general. And so ultimately, if a woman is feminine and she wants to step into her feminine, then she needs to have a masculine man who's stepping up in that way too. I mean, it works in the reverse. It works even for gay couples and things like that too. Somebody's really just got to be able to embody that. And that's how that symbiosis starts to work for them. At the end of the day, you've really just got to ask yourself, like, are you happy in the relationship that you're in, because if you're not happy, it might be because of some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
all right, guys. Well, I mean, if you need any help or if you have any questions, obviously you can go to our Magnetic Men Club website. You can schedule a free consultation with Jared here, and he'll be able to sit down with you on that hour-long meeting and really identify some of these things. If you have concerns about these things, or you think that, maybe you want to know more, or maybe you want to actually dig into this a little further and figure out exactly what it means to be your best self, then obviously that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I'd love to chat with you guys. And also, if you are in a relationship now, maybe a marriage, maybe an LTR, and these signs of hypergamy are starting to pick up a little bit, jump on a call. There are some things you can do to mitigate this and to maybe self-correct yourself, so that your girl now realizes actually he was the best option. You might have just fallen off. You might have just slipped in your duties as a man. We need to get you back onto those so that you don't lose your family. So we can definitely help with that. And the biggest thing is you have the answers inside of you. All of this is inside of you. We're just pulling it out using different techniques, different phrasing of questions that you're probably not used to. So it's a process. There's a technique to it that, again, old thoughts, your old paradigms cannot generate new ideas. They just simply can't. So all we want to do is, if you are having old rules about a situation or old thoughts about a situation, we want to ask first, how true is that? How is it serving you? How is this old thought serving you? When you realize it's not, bam, your mind completely kicks in, erases that thought and says, all right, what's the new thought? What are some new rules I can create around this? And that's where the work begins. That's when we can actually create new boundaries, new rules, new thoughts to help you level up. And that's what all coaching is. That's what we're here for. That's what we want to do. We do this every day. I love this part of my job, to be able to actually physically see the light snap. And I see it every day. When this light bulb goes off, they're like, oh, shit. Bam, then they completely can change. A lot of people say guys can't change, or you can't change overnight. It's a complete lie. It's just what you believe. It's the belief. Once you change your belief, everything else completely changes overnight. So we're here for you guys. We'll have links down below. We'd love to have a chat. It's a free call. It's about an hour long. It is a discovery call. I'm not on that call to be your friend. I am going to dig. I'm going to get it to the heart of the matter. I'm trying to find what's called that domino piece. I really want to find that one piece that you're struggling with. And once we can identify that and start correcting that, all the other pieces generally fall into place. That's what we're here for, guys.
Exactly. Like I said, we have a community of men who have been through exactly the same stuff. They've actually tried certain things themselves. We have men from all walks of life. And so that's the biggest thing, is what you get behind you is, you get Jared obviously here to consult with you to find out exactly who it is that you want to be and what your definition of success is, and then maps out a plan for you to get what you want specifically out of it. And in addition to that, you have a community support from men going through the same stuff. And so obviously we're here for you. Anything you need, jump on these lives. We're going live every single Wednesday. Just ask your questions here. Ask your questions in the videos. We're happy to answer.
Sir, I appreciate your time, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, you too. Absolutely. This has been awesome, man.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll talk next Wednesday. Have a good rest of your day.
Yes.